Okay, I figured out my key to success, now I'm locked in. I learned how to open doors like a locksmith. I'm uptown, I'm the one they wanna shop with. Run off with the bag, even though we don't shoplift. All that gun talk y'all want, I'm not with. It's not cool, everybody got them long clips. You gon' mess around and get one of your dogs hit. And when you do, I hope you know you're not John Wick.
What's up? Welcome back. Appreciate you locking in. Different scenery today. We are actually in the lobby. We're not on the mats here. DK isn't present. He's heading out to Orlando, Kids Pan Ams. Exciting for the academy, and it's always exciting for him because every single time he goes to Florida, he hits up Disney. You know?
Yeah,
He's a huge Disney guy, so I know he's been looking forward to it. Kenny Florian on the pod today. Second time having him on the pod. Appreciate you coming in. You know, on vacation, I know. So
yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. You know, obviously, big UFC card this weekend. It's a 3 or 4 or 3 or 6. It's 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah, in Manchester.
Yep.
Some good fights on the card, man. You know, to the casual, they might look at the card and just look at, you know, the main event and co-main. And even you can throw in the King Green fight and Patty. But there's some other fights on there, man, that I think are pretty exciting. I'm a big fan of Giga Chikadze.
Yep.
Like I think especially that body kick he has, man, is ridiculous. Yeah. So that's a fight I'm really looking forward to. Whenever you take a look at the card, anything stand out to you that might be a sleeper?
Yeah, you know, obviously all those fights you mentioned I think are really exciting and intriguing. The other fights that come to mind for me that people might be sleeping on, Manal Kape against Muhammad Mokaev, I think is a really interesting fight. You know, two contrasting styles. Mokaev, excellent wrestler, grappler, really good at controlling guys. He's got some good submissions up his sleeve as well from top position. And Manal Kape is a special striker, really good counter striker. So where each other is weak, the other is strong. So interesting matchup to see how. I'm really interested to see how that plays out from a stylistic standpoint. And then the other one that I think is just going to be really exciting, which I think has just recently moved to the main card, is Gregory Rodriguez. He is taking on a guy that I think is a really special striker in CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan. And CLD, you know, I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him. I think he has next level athleticism. He certainly has knockout power. Gregory Rodriguez does as well. And the way that both of them fight, I think one of those guys are getting knocked out. Yeah. You know, I think CLD is a better striker just from a mobility standpoint. Like, he does things that other guys just simply cannot do. He moves so well. He's really fast, very dynamic, you know, attacks from angles. And Rodriguez is built like a beast, very tough, very strong. He's going to be in your face, has knockout power, physically strong, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm sure he's going to try to use that, you know, as far as takedowns and submissions. I think that's where he can win this fight for sure. So that one I don't see going the distance. And from an excitement standpoint, that's probably the one for the fans to watch.
Right. And, you know, I saw they put Molly McCann.
Yeah.
She's back. You know,
fighting at flyweight.
Yeah. And you know, on the prelims, but still, I mean, anybody who's seen Molly fight, it's going to be an exciting fight. Now, I believe that didn't she get dropped from the UFC for a little while, and then they picked her back up.
She may have. I don't recall exactly the specifics, but yeah, I think she's way more suited to this weight class. The weight class she was fighting at before, she was way too small.
Yeah.
And I think she really has been honing in on improving her grappling as well. I think she was always good as a striker.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good matchup for her. You know, Bruna Silva is tough, pretty solid, but I think Molly, this is a good fight for her in this weight class to kind of look good, I think. So yeah,
I agree. How many spinning elbows do you think we see out of Molly? That is cool, her. Man. That's her thing, man.
It is.
So we mentioned, you know, the fights that we think are sleepers. It's not Bobby Green anymore. King Green and Paddy Pimblett. That has all the makings to be an exciting fight, right? Yeah. But you know, Paddy, I think probably it might just be up to opinion, but I see him more as a grappler, I guess, and striker, even though he likes to stand and strike.
Yes.
Bobby Green, you know, known for being a striker, a pretty exciting one, pretty durable guy.
Yep.
When you look at that fight, what are the keys to success for either one of them, whoever you think might win?
Yeah, man, I think you set it up right. I think that for Paddy, I know he's been working a lot with Justin Flores, phenomenal grappling coach out in San Diego, high-level judoka, high-level wrestler. And I know he's been putting in time with Justin. That is going to help him. Why? Because I think Paddy has a big advantage on the ground if he's able to get top position. Bobby's been improving his grappling a lot. Obviously submitted Tony Ferguson, all that stuff. I know that he's been working a lot on his anti-grappling game, but also isn't so uncomfortable on the ground now. And I think for Paddy, he's got to take this fight to the ground. He's got to get top position. That's where he can win this fight and finish the fight. And for King Green, he needs to be able to stop the takedown, keep it on the feet. He's very unorthodox on the feet.
He just needs to stay awkward.
Yeah, he's got an unusual style, and because of that, it's hard to prepare for. So the way that he moves, his hands are down. You think he's going to be vulnerable, and then he catches you with something out of nowhere because he's fast, because he attacks you with a lot of funky angles with his strikes. He could be a problem, especially with his hands. So I think that he's also on a good win streak right now. So confidence is high. And I think this is a great measuring stick for us to see exactly how good Paddy Pimblett is.
Yep.
Is he the real deal? Is he all hype? If he beats someone like King Green, you got to give him his flowers. That will be big for him. And so I think this is a true test. I'm leaning towards King Green right now just because we saw Paddy struggle with guys like Jared Gordon. Obviously, really good, experienced fighter. And King Green, I think, has that yet another level of danger on the feet. So I think if he stays standing with someone like King Green, not only does he risk losing the fight by decision, he does risk losing the fight by knockout because Paddy has a tendency of keeping that chin super high.
And he gets hit.
So he's tough as hell, and I think he'll still have a good chin, but you don't want to give too many opportunities to someone like King Green to hit you in the jaw.
Yep, I agree 100%. And I think if I had to edge it out, I would give the edge to King as well. And both of them fought Ferguson. And then Paddy could have had almost put Ferguson out in the first round. I think he kind of blew his load there. Well,
he got a little tired.
That sounded weird.
Yeah. I know what you're talking
about. But almost first round finish, ended up going all the way to decision. But then that's also a testament to Tony Ferguson. That dude is so durable.
Insanely
and I'm looking forward to his upcoming fight as well.
Who's Tony fighting? I'm not sure I saw that.
I thought that they put him and I might sound stupid, but I thought for some reason it was him and Chiesa.
You could be right. Actually, I think you are right. Yeah. That's it.
Which is
that's a good fight. That's
it is a good fight.
Yeah.
I would probably edge it to Chiesa just because Tony, he's fought in that weight class before. I think he might be undefeated in that weight class. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But Chiesa's a big dude, man.
He is, man. And I think Chiesa's one of those guys that's very underrated on the ground. From what I hear, I heard his top game is really, really solid. Just pure jiu-jitsu skills. He's a big dude. I think Ferguson will have a little bit more energy, a little bit more size now that he's at 170. I think that 55 cut is tough for him now.
Oh yeah,
at this age. And so I just want to see a good fight. Both those guys have been around the game for a long time, super seasoned. So that's right. I forgot about that.
And I think Ferguson deserves to be able to end his career on a good fight like that, man.
No, definitely.
That dude is wow.
Yeah, because this could go either way. I don't think it's disrespectful to say that both guys are kind of at the end of their career at this stage, and Chiesa has played around with maybe retiring and stuff like that, and but both guys are definitely have been top tier, have been elite in their game, and just to do that is a huge accomplishment. And I don't even have to say anything about Tony Ferguson, who went on a 9-fight win streak in the toughest division in the UFC. So, it's been tough. I think a lot of the newer fans haven't seen Chiesa and Ferguson when they were in their prime. So
Exactly.
But this fight makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and how many people have gone on a 9-fight win streak in the UFC and not touched?
Period. Yeah,
right. Like crazy. It's insane.
And to do it in the lightweight division, maybe I'm biased because I fought at lightweight.
No, but
dude, it's the best division in the.
Yeah, it's notoriously been stacked for years and years and years.
You look at the top 25 at 155. And you could say probably 170, but I'd say more so 55, 45, 35, dude. Like the top 25 guys are absolute killers.
Yeah, and I mean, whenever you're watching the smaller weight classes, right? You can expect 3 things: speed, power, and cardio.
Yep.
Right, and I think that's typically what people. Now everybody loves to see a good heavyweight slugger, but most of the time when you see that, dudes are gassed by the middle of the second round.
And I'll say technique, right? I mean, the lighter,
absolutely.
the smaller guys are always going to be the more technical guys,
right?
So maybe not as dangerous from like a power standpoint, like you mentioned, but as far as the most technical guys in a mixed martial arts gym are always the little dudes. And the same with jiu-jitsu. Like,
for real.
It's not as fun to roll with the bigger guys.
Yeah, especially when you're like my size.
Right, my size. So yeah.
So Tom Aspinall, like all the makings of
guys.
all the makings of a great heavyweight fighter, right? Also, had that knee injury, came back for that. He's now the interim heavyweight champion, taking on Curtis Blaydes. Yeah. How do you see this fight going?
So, Curtis is tough because, he's got knockout power. He's a huge dude who has that wrestling background. So he can decide to, put you on your back. He could stand up and strike you and maybe knock you out. So I don't think his chin is what it used to be. And also, even if you have a great chin and you get hit by a heavyweight, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But he's tough, man. He's tough, and a lot of times he surprises you. That could be a good thing and a bad thing, because sometimes when you expect Curtis Blaydes to go out there and smash, he doesn't look great. Sometimes when you don't expect, he lost his last fight, I don't know if he's still around, and then he comes back and surprises you with a big knockout or something like that. So, he is one of those guys that you have to respect. There's no question about that. And the losses that he's had have been largely against really, really good fighters. But Aspinall is one of those rare athletes in that division. Rarely do you see a guy 6'5", 260 pounds, who moves like a freaking cat. Yeah. Like, his athleticism, his mobility is next level. His speed, his ability to fit. Like, you just don't get those guys walking into the gym every day. Yeah. And that alone could make him a problem. It's compounded by the fact that he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who is very good. And then he also has excellent technique on the feet. Like, defensively, sometimes, like, I see some vulnerabilities, but offensively, the dude's a problem. Like, he feints like a lightweight. The way that he moves, he gets you biting on stuff. His ability to get in and get out is awesome. So, I hate when, we jump to conclusions and be like, hey, this guy could be the greatest of all time. Well, he actually could. He's got that potential to be that.
Right.
But you don't call someone the GOAT unless they have some level of consistency, and that's what we would be waiting for, and level of competition. Right. If he's able to do that, he could be branded that in the future. I do think he has that kind of level of potential.
Do you think we ever see the Aspinall and Jones matchup?
I'm not sure. I would be leaning towards no.
Me too.
Because it's a lot to ask for John Jones. He's dealt with a lot, both in and out of the cage. He's been fighting a long time. He has proven himself time and time again. Yep. And the problem with the sport is that, no matter what you've accomplished, let's say you're talking about, let's say Roger Gracie, and it's like, well, Roger was the GOAT back then, but what about now? It's like there's always going to be someone who comes along and say, but he hasn't beaten this guy. Yeah. And the reality is, it's not fair to compare someone who's been fighting for such a long time who may not be in their prime. And I think it's safe to say that John Jones isn't in his prime right now. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but from injuries to all the fights that he's experienced, I don't know if that would be fair. It would be cool for Tom Aspinall because he has an opportunity to go against a champion, and from then people could elevate him to that level of status. Right. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think John Jones probably has one left, maybe fight a Stipe Miocic, which is a fight that you could argue, okay, for Stipe, he's way past his prime. Further along than I would say John Jones. Mm-hmm. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'm kind of on the fence if I think that the Stipe and Jones fight will ever happen.
That's a good point.
I think we would all like to see John Jones fight one more time, at least one more, especially since going up to heavyweight. And just, for people like you and me, John Jones has always been the skinny, light heavyweight to just ran through everybody.
Yeah.
So seeing him at heavyweight for us is like, damn, like this is crazy to even see him that big.
No, totally. And I think Aspinall is one of the few guys that I have seen in light heavyweight who moves like how John Jones did in his prime, where you're like, how is this guy this big and moving this way? Like, it doesn't make sense. And for that reason, Aspinall becomes that much more of a dangerous fight for someone like John Jones, again, who's near the end of his career. He's already been there and done that.
Yeah.
And just like Stipe. Stipe deserves to just retire. He doesn't need to fight John Jones.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, so we'll see how it all plays out. Money talks sometimes, and it brings people out of retirement or gets them to hang around a little bit longer. But I think John Jones is really also aware of his legacy right now and how that would look if he went in there against Aspinall and got knocked out. I'm not saying that would happen. I think John Jones would still be competitive.
It's definitely a possibility.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. And this Stipe fight with Jones, I mean, it would be a pure legacy fight. Yeah. I mean, for the both of them, right?
Exactly.
Stipe, people, I think even Dana's called him the greatest heavyweight ever. And then, John Jones having the GOAT status.
Yep.
That would be a great fight. Now, I thought, and I'm going to be honest, I thought Cyril Gahn might have been the dude to do it to John. But we saw how that fight was just, it didn't even really look competitive at all.
Yeah, I think Cyril on the feet is one of those guys who moves extremely well.
Man.
He's silky smooth. He's very technical. Makes good decisions largely, aside from that Francis Ngannou fight at the very end.
Yeah.
but no disrespect, Cyril, because you could kill me with one punch. But to me, and that was a lack of experience, probably. So I don't want to chalk it up to just that. Experience matters. Making good decisions matters. I've made a ton of bad decisions in the cage, but I think that he was exposed on the ground.
Yeah. And I didn't even know.
John Jones so good. It's like he'll go out there and submit. Vitor Belfort, again, a lot smaller than him, but he'll submit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. He'll out-grapple Olympic-level wrestlers and he'll out-strike high-level strikers. And you're like, man, that's
just there's no end to that man's to his tool shed.
Yeah.
He's got something for everything.
Yep.
And that's what'll get you to the GOAT status. Exactly. And then finally, the main event. It's going to be a rematch. The first one, disappointing draw or no contest due to eye poke, Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards. When you watch that first fight and you think about it back, who do you think was winning?
So definitely Leon.
Yeah.
I thought Leon looked really dominant. I think it was unfortunate with the eye pokes and all that stuff. I do think they are very different fighters. I would probably even go further and say that Bilal has probably made more improvements.
Yeah.
However, you can't deny that Leon was at a much higher level when they fought.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't ideal circumstances for Bilal. I think he took the fight on 3 weeks' notice. It was at the Apex. It was happening during COVID. Leon had to deal with those things too.
Yep.
The reality is that he had to deal with those things as well. He had to travel from England. Maybe he had a longer training camp, but he had to deal with a lot of the same crap.
Yep.
Pardon my French.
Well, he had a couple of fights that fell through during the COVID era, so
exactly. So he kind of wanted to stay busy, and so I think it's going to be a much different fight. Bilal has looked phenomenal.
5-fight win streak.
Oh my
against some killers too, man.
Against killers, high level guys. I think he in some ways does a lot of, I would say this, might be more well rounded. Right, there's more maybe facets to his game. He has conditioning that can be weaponized. He knows how to push the pace on people. There's a lot of different styles that he can face, whereas Edwards is more like, I'm going to stand up and trade with anybody. I'm going to make it real difficult for you to take me down. If you do take me down, I know how to get back to my feet. I know how to survive on the ground. So Leon is phenomenal. Leon's one of those guys that, from a textbook perspective, he does everything perfectly. Like, if you were to show how someone should strike well, I would show Leon Edwards. Everything, he doesn't make any mistakes offensively, defensively. He's just super clean. We've seen him get tired in fights like, let's say, Nate Diaz, perhaps.
Yeah.
But he knows how to manage his energy really well. And I think that's what you get when you have a guy who's super technical. And for Bilal, he cannot fight a technical fight against him. He's got to bring chaos. He's got to bring dirty boxing in the clinch. He's got to make it dirty and nasty. That's what he's got to do. He needs to make Leon as uncomfortable as possible, because if Leon's technical and he's leading the dance, he's going to beat everybody. I don't see any welterweight in the world beating him.
Yeah, and for Leon too, we've also seen him really have to. We've seen his heart, right? I mean, you look at the Kamaru Usman fight, the dude was losing just about every facet of that fight, and then just pulled it out in the end.
Yeah.
And that's always cool to see. And with Belal, it's hard to think of somebody that's more deserving probably of a title shot, especially in a rematch from the way that the first one ended.
He's done everything right. He's had to wait around a long time to get this shot. He's beaten all the guys that the UFC has put in front of him, a variety of styles as well. And another thing to note in Belal's game is the fact that this dude knows how to execute. He talk about good MMA IQ. Like, he's always making the right decisions. He's doing the right things at the right time, and that's a guy you can't really count out. I'm leaning towards Leon. That's who I ended up picking, and actually, Belal is a friend of mine. He's actually on mine and John Anik's network for his YouTube channel, which is awesome.
Right.
You got to check out his podcast. He's hilarious. But so I'm leaning towards Leon just based on the fact that, so if Leon didn't beat Kamaru Usman 2 times in a row, I'd be like, Belal definitely, there's a lot of value on him. I think Belal could pull it off. But I think Leon, coming off of 2 wins over Usman, a win over Colby Covington, his confidence is going to be running super high right now. And he's just a tough guy to beat. But I think Belal is going to surprise a lot of people with how he performs. Let's put it this way. If Belal pulls off a win, I won't be shocked.
Right. Same here. I do edge it out to Leon. I mean, exactly what you said. I mean, you are such a good analyst, bro. I'm
like talking a lot. So
like,
that's my problem.
Well, sometimes I have it in my head. I just don't know how to say it. But then you're over here saying everything. I agree 100%. I think that you kind of have to edge it out to Leon. But if there's going to be somebody to do it, I think Belal is the guy.
He's a problem, man. He's a problem, yeah.
And, when you look past UFC 304 this weekend and you look at some of the fights coming up, what are some that excite you the most?
So, dude, the one that's coming out in the weekend after, Corey Sandhagen.
Oh, God, I love that guy.
He's taking on Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Umar Nurmagomedov, did I get that right?
Yep.
So there's so many of them. But dude, I think that's a fascinating fight. I have so much respect for Sandhagen. I love his approach to the game. He's tall. He's lanky. He knows how to use it. He's multifaceted in his game. He's a true martial artist. He's tough as hell. And he's the full package, you know? But like all Nurmagomedovs in that family, cousins or brothers or whatever it is, they do one thing so well.
Yep.
And they know how to get to your legs or get to your body, put you on your back, and hold you there and beat you up from there. And they do it against no matter what style. So anytime you get a guy that you know exactly what he's going to do and you can't stop it, there's something special about that.
Yep, absolutely.
And so I think this is a fascinating fight. Nurmagomedov does not have the experience of Corey Sandhagen. I'm curious to see how he looks against someone like Corey. Mm-hmm. But that to me is super intriguing, man. Merab Dvalishvili against Sean O'Malley. That fight is fire.
Yeah.
Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway. That fight is fire.
Yep.
Like the UFC, they have such an insane roster.
It's a great time to be a fan of.
Dude, insane.
Yeah.
And like to the point where, they'll get a fight that falls through and be like, all right, we're going to put Alex Pereira against Jamal Hill. Like, they're just a machine, dude. And there's so many more high-level fighters than when I was fighting. And, they just know what to do, how to do it. And the level is just insane. And we're getting a lot of great fights because of it. But those are the fights on the horizon that I'm really excited about, man. So, and those are really hard to – like, if you ask me right now, how do I see Topuria and Holloway?
Man.
Can't tell you. I have to watch a ton of video, and maybe I'll give you an answer. But, I don't know. O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili. Like, I don't know. I could see Merab, grinding him out for 25 minutes, or I could see O'Malley knocking him out early.
Well, you look at the O'Malley and, Sterling. O'Malley and Sterling fight. Like,
exactly.
That one was the first one for O'Malley where, the first one was kind of the Peter Yan.
Yep.
But I was looking at the Sterling fight. I was like, dang, because I'm an O'Malley fan, you know.
Me too.
And, against Aljamain, it's just like, damn, like we already know what's probably going to happen. And
With
then,
the broken rib or hurt rib or
right.
whatever it was. Yeah.
And they got knocked out in the process of trying to take him down. So, yeah, you look at the Merab fight. I mean, you saw what Merab did to Henry, but, Henry getting older, that sort of thing. But, I mean, still, though, like Henry, gold medalist, everybody knows the whole Triple C thing. Like, to make him look like that, it's incredible. So, I'm excited for that fight. And, I completely forgot about the Sandhagen fight.
Yeah.
Sandhagen
weekend.
Yeah, and everybody back when TJ Dillashaw got the title shot against Aljamain, a lot of people were saying like it should be Sandhagen. Obviously TJ got that shot because he came back, and at the time, people could have looked at TJ as being one of the greatest bantamweights ever.
Absolutely. And I thought that Sandhagen had a pretty strong argument that maybe he won that fight too. That could have gone either way.
Oh, great fight, dude.
Yeah, it was an awesome fight.
That's a very exciting fight too, and that's going to be on a fight night, which is going to be not free, but free on ESPN Plus. So that's going to be a great one. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep.
So before we get out of here, I know you're on vacation. I don't want to keep you long.
No sweat.
I want to hear your thoughts about this past weekend. Jake Paul. Listen, I will be one of those guys. I will say at first I hated it. Hated it, but the dude's working. And he's getting better, regardless of if he's boxing people that, have been boxing their entire lives or not, and regardless if he's on the juice or not, he looks pretty good in the boxing ring. Now, this last fight, you could say, well, Mike Perry looked like absolute shit. Kind of did. But who am I to say that, because I've never been to a boxing ring. But when Paul, a lot bigger than him in the ring, probably had like at least 20 pounds on the guy.
Yeah, man.
And I know you said you didn't watch the entire fight, but you saw some highlights. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, dude, listen, at a certain point, and maybe it was a fight or two ago, but certainly after this fight, you got to give Jake Paul credit, man. Yes, he's taking the right fights. He's picking the right ones. That is where a lot of his genius lies, like Ray Longo says, and I think he's absolutely spot on with that. However, you get a guy who is this YouTube influencer, right? He's already multimillionaire. A lot of different things he could have done for money. He decides to go into fighting, and he's fighting dudes. Okay, yes, maybe at the end of their prime, but still, they're the fighter. Jake Paul wasn't. And I think because that, it allows him to kind of fight without pressure. And the dude's, he's been in front of a mic for many, many years now. He knows how to hype it up.
Very good, yeah.
He knows how to be controversial, that we know. And but at the end of the day, you have to go out and perform. You got to actually look good. And it's not like he's just flailing punches like with his head down and just like, the finishing sequence wasn't perfect per se, but he's getting a finish and he's doing it against a guy, Mike Perry, who is one of the toughest dudes to ever compete in combat sports. Okay, maybe he's not the most technical dude in the world, but Mike Perry is a warrior through and through, and he's found his niche in competing in bare knuckle. And anyone who can do that and beat the guys that he's beaten bare knuckle, dude, you're a legend. Mike Perry is an absolute legend. He's a stud. So he's fighting with, larger gloves on and something that he's not a specialist in, but still, Jake Paul is a big dude who knows how to punch. He knows how to move his feet. He's put in the work. That is clear. But yeah, I mean, he's picking right fights either because he's getting guys at the end of their prime or he's getting guys that he's a lot bigger than.
Yep.
All right. So, that's impressive still. But I want to see him against a guy who's his size, who's not necessarily at the end of his prime. And then we can kind of make a better determination of how good Jake Paul is.
Right.
But you do have to give him credit for doing something that is really difficult and doing it against guys who have largely fought for a large part of their life.
Yeah, and, with Jake Paul, he's doing what most boxers do anyways in the beginning of the career.
Yeah.
They pick the fights, try to maybe pad the record a little bit. The only difference is he's on a much larger platform because of his status, his celebrity status coming into his fighting career. But yeah, I agree, man. I think the first time we really saw Jake fight somebody, maybe his size and not all the way out in their prime, was Tommy Fury. Yep. That ended the way it did. I don't think we'll ever see that one again. If we do, it'll probably be down the road. But as far as Jake saying in 2.5 years he wants to be the cruiserweight world champion, I don't know if I see that happening.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like the work that guy's put in, you have to applaud it. I mean, people can say what they want about the guy, but 90% of the people who, well, let's be honest, most of the people that are talking shit at this point probably aren't necessarily fighters.
Yeah, dude. And listen,
and he would smoke their boots.
Yeah, and he doesn't need to fight.
Yeah.
He doesn't need. There's a lot easier ways to make a few million for Jake Paul. Jake Paul can go and start a brand deal, company or do a brand deal or whatever, and it's just like no. He's like, I want to choose to fight. Cool, man. I mean, hats off, respect. But we'll see what happens when he faces a tougher challenge. We saw that, like you mentioned, against Fury, and didn't go so well. But he's still learning, and that was a big challenge. And I think he's kind of reeled it in a little bit, making better decisions on who he's fighting again. And we'll see him again. I'm sure he'll be there. And whether that fight against Tyson happens or not, I hate it just because Tyson is.
I don't think
60.
it will. Yeah,
so, I mean, yeah. So that wasn't a great sign.
Right.
That he had a doctor who came in and had to put a halt on it. So hopefully, Tyson stays healthy and kind of stays home. I think for that.
And speaking of people who don't have to fight, right? The whole Conor McGregor thing with Michael Chandler. Me personally, I think Chandler smokes him at this point. I just think I think Chandler's more durable. We've seen him. Man, he's just a dog, right? Not to say Conor's not, but we haven't seen Conor tested like Chandler has been and fight through it. So what do you but Chandler doesn't have the best record since he's been in the UFC. Right. Great fights, but not the best record.
Right, and that's the thing. I think I think you make some really good points. The problem with Chandler is that he's almost too tough for his own good.
Yeah.
And he becomes reckless in certain fights where it's like, bro, you're a good wrestler. You don't have to stand and just brawl like you're in a phone booth. Like, there's a lot of other things you could do, and sometimes he doesn't make the best decisions. And he does make a lot of money, and he's made a promise to the UFC that he's always going to be exciting. And, hey, that's cool. If that's how he's going to fight, that's great. But he's not going to have a beautiful record in the UFC doing that. The UFC is a completely different level than Bellator, and I do think Chandler is still a very good fighter. I think he's very dangerous. If he beat Conor, would I be surprised? No. However, I do think Conor is the better fighter. I think he's more technical. I think he has more tools, and especially on the counter. Like, Conor's game is made in a lot of ways for guys that can move forward and try to box with him. Right. And because of that, I think he's got a great shot at not only beating Chandler, but knocking him out. But, how healthy is Conor? How consistent has he been with his game? How in it is he? I don't know. I think so. A lot of it to me has been, it's almost always been about Conor, meaning how dedicated is he? How locked in is he? How focused is he? And when you're that wealthy, when you have a lot of those distractions, when you have a lot of other businesses, it's hard to dedicate 100% of your time to MMA. And if you're fighting the best guys, and if you're not dedicating 100% of your time to MMA, in 2024, you're not going to win every fight.
Yeah.
Period. It's just these are hungry killers who are locked in and training all the time. They're not taking a year off because they broke their leg. They're not taking time off because they're out on their yacht with their family in Europe.
Yeah.
So it's a different level. And I think that's why Conor didn't take this fight when he broke his toe. And I think it was a great decision. Like, he's realizing I can't pull these same wins off like I used to. Yep. It's a totally different game. And every fight, if you are a fighter in the UFC and you have an opportunity to fight someone like Conor McGregor, that's the biggest payday and biggest opportunity of your life. And you better believe those dudes are training as much as possible and going to try to be at their highest level. And to get that win. You get a win over Conor, that changes your life. Yeah. Period. So.
Yep. That's another legacy fight, right?
It's a legacy fight. Yeah.
And I think, with the broken toe incident, I think Conor deserves to fight 100%, and I think the fans deserve to see Conor fight at 100% because it's been so few times in the past, 5-6 years that we've seen Conor fight.
Yep.
So I think that was the best thing he could have done, even though he gave RDA so much shit back in the day for pulling out with a broken foot.
Exactly.
Excited to see that one as well. And let's not forget that he was doing well against Poirier before the whole leg incident happened.
Yes.
I mean, he was piecing him up. I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch it to say if I think that he was actually winning the fight, but he was doing well. And Poirier, Chandler, that was a great fight too. I think Poirier ended up choking him out or getting a sub some way or another. But yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I think Conor's mouth has brought
dude.
him to where he is, but it's also overshadowed the fact that, for me, in my opinion, Conor in his prime is one of the most talented and best fighters that I've seen compete in the octagon. Conor in his prime, dude, was something different, and people kind of forget about that either because they're newer fans and they have only seen Conor as of late, and and again, all the shine kind of goes to how he promotes the fights and not about how good of a fighter he actually was. So I'm still kind of reminiscing about seeing, I called Conor's first fight in the UFC. So, I'm a little sentimental when it comes to Conor and giving him more leeway with some of the things that he's done outside of the octagon. But I think that, if Conor's able to bring back some of that creativity, bring the martial artist Conor out again, I think he still has some special fights left in him.
Yeah.
But it comes down to how dedicated Conor is and how badly he wants it. And if he's able to combine those things, then, man, I still think he has another few fights left in him where he can bring some specialness back to the game. And I think he's that good of a striker where on his best day, he can knock out anyone in the world.
Yeah, and he's got 2 fights left on his contract. So if you were playing the matchmaker, right? Who are those? Who are you lining up with the last 2? And let's just say those are the last 2 fights that he'll ever have.
Yeah. Okay, so he has this fight here coming up against Chandler.
Now, you could replace Chandler in this scenario if you wanted to.
If you're the UFC, you're going to try to find the biggest fight possible. What is the biggest fight possible for him? Well, it's Islam Makhachev. Does he deserve it against Islam Makhachev? I don't know. Well, there's an argument to be made.
Yeah.
What people don't get about the business of fighting, and it's something I didn't really understand, and it doesn't make it right, but you're in the business of fighting. What is the business of fighting? Making the most money possible. So it's like, he beats someone like Chandler. Okay, is Chandler elite in that division? Yeah. Is he a big name? Yeah. He had the history of Habib, the history with the Dagestani fighters.
Yep.
Islam's going to make more money than he ever had in his life.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure Islam wants it to happen. The UFC wants to make the biggest fight possible. And so that is a possibility. Conor would have to fight down at 55. He'd have to cut that weight.
Do you think he could even get back down to 55? I
think he can. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think he can. But, right now at 155, you just saw Dustin fighting Islam Makhachev.
Yeah.
He wasn't on this crazy win streak. He had lost to Justin Gaethje and beat Benoit Saint-Denis, and he got the shot. Yeah. Chandler is a bigger name and a better fighter, in my opinion, than Benoit Saint-Denis. If Conor won, you can make that argument. I'm not saying that's the absolute way to go about it, but there's an argument. There's not only an argument, there's a strong argument. And if you're the UFC, you're in the business of making money and putting on fights that fans want to see. Do fans want to see that? I don't know. Then you can maybe counter that and say, people don't want to see Conor anymore. Okay, if that's the case, maybe you have a point.
Man, I think that's one person that I don't think it matters, dude. I think people just want to watch him. I think the Islam and Conor fight would be huge. I think it would be. I think it could be bigger than Khabib and Conor, just because it's like Conor taking on the next generation of Dagestani fighters coming up. So yeah, that'd be a great fight, man. Do I think it ever happened? No. Yeah. I don't. But it'd be one for sure that people will look back on years from now and be like, that's a fight I wish we could have seen. Kind of like the Tony Ferguson and Habib. They tried 4 times to make that happen. Yeah. But regardless, man, it's an exciting time to be a fan, not only of MMA, but I guess the UFC. You got people out there be like, I want to do UFC. They don't even call it MMA because they only watch UFC. But it's an exciting time to be a fan. Definitely. And man, the fights are just going to get bigger and better as these generations come up, where they've been training everything since they were 4 years old. It's not just a wrestling base anymore, like a wrestler fighting a kickboxer. Sure, you'll find those every now and then, but to compete at the highest level these days, you got to know it all. So
with you. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an exciting time. Well, Kenny, I appreciate you coming by, man. It's always cool to sit back, whether I'm listening to your podcast with John Anik, or getting to talk to you in person, man. It's always cool to hear from you because I mean, dude, you know what the fuck you're talking about.
My pleasure, man. You do a great job yourself, dude. It's awesome to come on, and anytime, I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Can't wait. Well, appreciate you guys locking in. If you'd like to, you can like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that shit. If you don't want to, then fuck you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We appreciate you, man. Go check out what Kenny's got going on. By the way, I see you on Instagram all the time. Is it in Charlotte where looks like you got a warehouse and you're working with people on knives and guns and all sorts of shit, dude?
Yeah, man. It's been fun. I always feel like weapons are kind of the extension of kind of what I do already. It's a tool, just like any technique, and it's been fun kind of problem solving for that. So, I've been working with, some military guys and LE guys, and going through some problem solving, trying to think about it from a martial arts perspective and use my experience the best that I can. And I've been doing a lot of shooting as well, which has been awesome. And again, I think it's just like martial arts. It is martial arts. And so having that opportunity to kind of share whatever experience I have and also trying to learn at the same time has been super cool. I work with one of the groups that I work out with in Charlotte is A&R Tactics. Great group. They have an awesome facility in Charlotte. Any guys that want to come in and swing by, they have a shoot house there. We have mats to roll around in, a ton of equipment. We got simunition that we play around with in the house and stuff as well. We work on knife stuff. We work on disarming, and try to kind of run the gamut on that and figure stuff out. It's been fun, man. That's the lab right there. Yeah.
It's definitely dope to watch because
it's fun, man.
See guys like
it's different. It's so different. Than every day,
having all this padding. You walk into a room, next thing you know, they're trying to shank you up and stuff. Exactly. So it's cool to watch.
Thanks, man. But
anyways, man, appreciate you stopping by. You can go enjoy the rest of your vacation. Till next time.